Jó napot kívánok! Jó napot kívánok, hölgyeim és uraim! Tisztelettel köszöntöm Önöket, és megkülönböztetett tisztelettel köszöntöm Ő Excellenciája J.D. Vance urat, az Amerikai Egyesült Államok 50. alelnökét a hivatalos magyarországi látogatása alkalmából rendezett sajtótájékoztatón. Tisztelettel köszöntöm Orbán Viktor urat, Magyarország miniszterelnökét, az amerikai és a magyar delegáció tagjait és minden kedves vendégünket. Felkérem Orbán Viktor urat, Magyarország miniszterelnökét, hogy tegye meg nyilatkozatát.
Jó napot kívánok, hölgyeim és uraim! Ha megengedik, magyarul fogok beszélni. Tisztelettel és szívből köszöntjük Vance alelnök urat Magyarországon. Alelnök, kedves barátom, alelnök utoljára 35 éve járt utoljára Magyarországon, és 20 éve nem volt ilyen magasrangú vendégünk az Egyesült Államokból. 20 év barátok között azért hosszú idő. Trump elnök úr megválasztásával egy aranykor köszöntött be kapcsolatainkban. Mint most számba vettük, 2025 a rekordok éve volt a gazdasági együttműködésben. 26-os év is lendületes, 50%-kal nőtt a kereskedelmi forgalom, és márciusban 6 amerikai cég jelentett be jelentős magyarországi beruházásokat, több mint 100 milliárd forint értékben, és a mai napon megerősítettük a stratégiai szintet elért együttműködésünket az űripari és védelmi területeken is. A Trump elnök úrnak és Vance alelnök úrnak köszönjük, hogy az elmúlt években kiálltak Magyarország mellett, és ma is ezt teszik. Az Egyesült Államok a világ legerősebb országa, és örömmel mondhatom, hogy ők ma a szövetségeseink. Magyarország békéje és biztonsága így garantált. Hölgyeim és uraim, arról is beszéltünk, hogy Európa minden idők legsúlyosabb energiaválsága felé halad. Drasztikus áremelkedéseket látunk, és ha időben nem lépünk, akkor energia, olaj és gázhiány alakulhat ki. És ebben a helyzetben különösen is fontos az amerikai-magyar energetikai együttműködés, amely nélkül nem tudnánk Magyarország energiabiztonságát garantálni, és a rezsicsökkentést sem lehetne megvédeni. Beszéltünk az Egyesült Államok béke erőfeszítéseiről. Magyarország mindig is támogatta az Egyesült Államokat és Donald Trump elnök urat e tekintetben. Mi 4 éve élünk egy háború árnyékában, és meg vagyunk győződve arról, hogy ha 22-ben Donald Trump lett volna az Egyesült Államok elnöke, ez a háború ki sem tört volna. És hogyha az európaiak, még pontosabban Brüsszel nem akadályozná az elnök béketörekvéseit, már régen béke lehetne Ukrajnában. Alelnök úrnak arról is beszéltem, hogy Magyarországon egy szokatlanul durva és nyílt külföldi titkosszolgálati beavatkozás zajlik a választási folyamatokba. Ennek fényében különösen nagyra értékeljük és üdvözöljük az Egyesült Államok elnökének döntéseit, amelyekkel megszüntette az amerikai pénzügyi beavatkozást más országok politikai folyamataiba. És ami miatt már régóta vártam erre a találkozóra, és hálás vagyok, hogy létrejöhetett, hogy az alelnök úrral áttekinthettük a nyugati civilizáció nagy kérdéseit is. Nem árulok el titkot, hogy itt folyamatos közöttünk az eszmecsere és a kormányzati munkából fakadó tapasztalatok cseréje. Különösen 4 területen: a migráció, a gender ideológia, a családpolitika és a globális biztonság terén. Itt ugyanis Magyarország komoly tapasztalatokkal és kiterjedt közép-európai és balkáni kapcsolatrendszerrel rendelkezik. Arra jutottunk a mai megbeszélés eredményeképpen, hogy az együttműködésünknek a folytatása mindkét fél érdeke, és a stratégiai együttműködés a 2 ország között a jövőben folyamatos lesz, és a jövőben is fennmarad. hálás szívvel köszönöm az alelnök úrnak, hogy megtisztelt bennünket és ellátogatott Magyarországra.
Miniszterelnök úr, köszönöm szépen. Most pedig felkérem J.D. Vance urat, az Amerikai Egyesült Államok 50. alelnökét, hogy tegye meg nyilatkozatát.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister, first of all, and thanks to the people of Hungary for welcoming me. This is a beautiful city, a city that I've been to once before on a personal trip probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I remember the first time that I came to this beautiful country, my wife was about 20 weeks pregnant with our second child. And now we've come back to Budapest, and my wife is 20 weeks pregnant with our fourth child. So there's an interesting way in which our trips to Hungary have rhymed. I also want to thank the President of the United States, who of course is a dear friend of Prime Minister Orbán and a very strident supporter of Prime Minister Orbán, because together the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Hungary have been able to do amazing things. And we're here because we want to celebrate those amazing things. We want to build upon those amazing things. And of course, I want to help as much as I possibly can the Prime Minister as he faces this election season, which I believe is happening in just about a week, the election to elect the next Prime Minister of Hungary. Now, I don't expect, of course, the people of Hungary to listen to the Vice President of the United States. That's not primarily why I'm here. But I did want to send a signal to everybody, particularly the bureaucrats in Brussels who have done everything that they can to hold down the people of Hungary because they don't like the leader who has actually stood up for the people of Hungary. And I think it's important to say that. There are so many things that we could point to. There are so many economic pieces of cooperation, so much investment that's come into Hungary from the United States. I think Viktor Orbán has been the single most profound leader in Europe on the question of energy security and independence. It is funny to watch prime ministers and leaders in some of the Western European capitals talk about the energy crisis when, frankly, they should have been following the policies of Viktor Orbán in Hungary. And if they had, the energy crisis that they're experiencing would be a lot less bad, because what's going on in Hungary right now is that while, yes, energy prices are elevated, they're far less elevated here than they are almost anywhere else in Europe. And that's because of the leadership of the man who's standing next to me. And I think that leadership can provide a model to the continent. We want Europe to be successful. We want European families to be able to afford to heat their homes and to build great things. We want Europe to be energy independent and even energy dominant, but it's not going to be energy secure if it continues to follow the failed policies of the past. And so I think Viktor has been a great example in charting a course that could lead to a better, more prosperous, and more energy secure Europe. There's a lot of other cooperation in technology and artificial intelligence and manufacturing. There are so many ways in which the United States and Hungary have been great economic partners, and that partnership has really accelerated over the past couple of years under President Trump's leadership. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here primarily, Viktor, because of the economic cooperation between our countries. I'm here because of the moral cooperation between our two countries, because what the United States and Hungary together represent under Viktor's leadership and under President Trump's leadership is the defense of Western civilization, the defense of the idea that children should be able to go to school and get educated and not indoctrinated, the defense of the idea that European and American families should be able to transport themselves and be able to afford to heat and cool their homes, the defense of the idea that we are founded on a certain Christian civilization and Christian values that animate everything from freedom of speech to rule of law to respect for minority rights and protection of the vulnerable. There is so much that unites the United States and Hungary, and unfortunately, there have been too few people who have been willing to stand up for the values of Western civilization. Viktor Orbán is the rare exception that has unfortunately proved the rule. That's one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm here because Viktor is a statesman, and we have seen so much talk in European capitals about the need to end the war in Russia and Ukraine, and we certainly agree with it. The war would have never started if President Trump had been president 4 years ago, but now that it has started, probably the two leaders who have done the most to actually end that destructive conflict have been Donald J. Trump and Viktor Orbán in Hungary. And they've done it through diplomacy, through talking to people, through trying to understand what the Ukrainians and the Russians need to end the war. We're going to continue to participate in that process, but I think that it is a testament to the people of Hungary that you're a country of 10 million people. But I'm telling you, I've sat in all the rooms and I've been on all the phone calls. Your leadership has been a far more important and constructive partner for peace than almost anyone anywhere else in the world, and that is a great testament, I think, to the wisdom and the courage of the people of Hungary. And then finally, I just want to say something, one final observation about this election. What has happened in this country, what has happened in the midst of this election campaign is one of the worst examples of foreign election interference that I've ever seen or ever even read about. The bureaucrats in Brussels have tried to destroy the economy of Hungary. They have tried to make Hungary less energy independent. They have tried to drive up costs for Hungarian consumers, and they've done it all because they hate this guy. But I think that what the people of Hungary, what I would encourage them to do is ask themselves the question, not who's pro or anti-Europe, not who's pro or anti the United States of America, but who is pro-you, who is pro the people of Hungary. In my experience, I've seen a guy who has ferociously advocated for the interests of Hungary. I'm here to help him in this campaign cycle, and yet when I sat down with Victor, we didn't talk about politics. We talked about here are 5 things that we need, that the Hungarian people need from the United States in order to further our partnership and in order to achieve prosperity. That's the kind of leadership that is needed. And on everything from digital censorship, why are bureaucrats in Brussels telling social media companies what information they're giving to Hungarian voters? I think the voters of Hungary are adults. They are sovereign in their own country, and they should be able to look at whatever information they would like to about the election without somebody in a faraway capital treating them like children. Sovereignty, democracy are fundamentally about the people choosing. And part of the reason why we're here, and part of the reason why the President of the United States sent me here, is because that we think the amount of interference that's come from the bureaucracy in Brussels has been truly disgraceful. I won't tell the people of Hungary how to vote. I would encourage the bureaucrats in Brussels to do the exact same thing. So, Victor, thank you, and it's good to see you.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a couple of questions. Do you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We have time for a couple of questions. The first two goes to the Hungarian side, and then the floor is yours, Mr. Vice President. Az első kérdést a Magyar Televíziónak fogom adni. Jó Csaba.
Köszönöm szépen, jó napot kívánok! Nem állnék fel a kamerák miatt, elnézést kérek. 2 kérdésem lenne, az egyik a miniszterelnök úrhoz, a másik pedig az alelnök úrhoz. A miniszterelnök úrtól azt kérdezném, hogy szóba kerültek-e a tárgyaláson az orosz-ukrán háború befejezésének lehetőségei, vannak-e fejlemények. Az alelnök úrtól pedig azt kérdezném, vagy azt kérném, hogy kommentálja Zelenszkij elnök úr fenyegetéseit, amit Magyarország, illetve személyesen Orbán Viktor miniszterelnök felé intézett. Köszönöm szépen.
Okay. Beszéltünk az orosz-ukrán háborúról, ami egy fájdalmas téma. Végül is 2 keresztény ország háborújáról beszélünk. Ráadásul Európa területén. Tehát ez a 2 mondat, ez megadja ennek a háborúnak a komolyságát. És én mindig is nagyra becsültem az Egyesült Államok elnökét, hogy az első pillanattól kezdve, mármint a mostani elnökről beszélek, hogy az első pillanattól kezdve ezt a 2 dimenziót tartotta a legfontosabbnak. Európában 2 ortodox, mélyen keresztény ország között zajlik egy háború, amelyben 10 és 100 ezrével esnek el, és válnak hadirokkantá emberek. Ez egy olyan szörnyűség, aminek minden eszközzel megállt kell parancsolni. És miután az Egyesült Államok Trump elnök urat megelőzően ezt a háborút támogatta, ezért különösen értékes számunkra az Egyesült Államok mostani álláspontja, amely egyértelműen a béke mellett van. Ezért, ha találkozik egy amerikai és egy magyar politikus, nem tud nem beszélni az orosz-ukrán háborúról. Ráadásul ez a háború Magyarország szomszédságában van. Ebben a háborúban magyarok is meghalnak, hiszen Ukrajna mai területén számos magyar ember él, akiket besoroznak, gyakran brutális, kényszerítő körülmények közepette, elviszik őket és meghalnak. Tehát nem lehet nem beszélni az orosz-ukrán háborúról egy ilyen találkozón. Különösen azért, mert korábban az Egyesült Államok elnöke kezdeményezte, hogy legyen békecsúcs Egyesült Államok és Oroszország között, és helyszínnek Magyarországot, Budapestet javasolta. Ami egy szinte egyetlen lehetséges európai helyszín. És Magyarország erre igent mondott, sőt ennek a békecsúcsnak a körülményeit, azt kell mondom, hogy technikai előkészítésének szintjéig mind az Egyesült Államok, mind pedig Oroszország elnökével megtárgyaltuk. Tehát Magyarország most is készen áll arra, hogyha az Egyesült Államok és az oroszok úgy gondolják, hogy kettőjük között egy békecsúcsra van szükség, akkor Budapest ennek a találkozónak továbbra is örömmel ad helyszínt és áll rendelkezésre. Ennyit tudok mondani ennek.
Thank you for your willingness to host. And just to answer your question, so I'm not aware of President Zelensky threatening Viktor Orban. I know that there have been a lot of people who have threatened Viktor and have frankly not just threatened the people of Hungary, but have actually tried to exact costs on the people of Hungary because their leadership has been one of the few that's been wise and smart about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Now look, you don't have to defend the morality of the war. I think Viktor has. I certainly have. The President of the United States has condemned the invasion. We don't like the war. We want it to stop. That's not the question. The question is, how do you make it stop? And the answer is not by politicians who stand at microphones and beat their chests and act tough when somebody else's children are going off to fight in a conflict. You do it through sustained diplomacy. And so I'd ask the people of Hungary, and not just Hungary, but the people all across Europe, what is the alternative to peace? Is it to continue feeding young men into this terrible, terrible war, to continue this completely ridiculous cycle of violence, or is it to get serious about diplomacy? Is it to continue to have skyrocketing energy prices to the point where European economies are on the verge of collapse, or is it to sit down and get serious about a peaceful resolution? The reason the President of the United States has been so dedicated about this is not because it affects us as personally as it does the people of Hungary or Europe. In fact, we're much more insulated, as all of you know, from what's going on in Russia and Ukraine than most countries anywhere else in the world. The President has asked us to work so diligently on it because he knows that it's bad. It's bad for commerce, it's bad for morality, it's bad for human life. We need to actually engage in some real diplomacy. Viktor has been better at anybody at helping us understand what is it the Ukrainians need and what is it that the Russians need in order to achieve peace. We're going to keep on working on that process. As you've all heard the President say, this war has been the hardest of all the wars that he's worked on to solve, but we're going to keep on working at it. The President has ordered us to keep on working at it, but we need people in Europe who understand the stakes and understand how to get this negotiation done. Viktor's been a great part of it, which is why the President asked him about the Budapest summit, because I think we're ever going to get these leaders together, this is the perfect place to do it, a place of real statesmanship, a place that has shown itself very willing to be a positive force for peace.
Köszönöm szépen. A második kérdést a Patriónának adom, Németi Noémi.
Köszönöm szépen, jó napot kívánok! Nekem is egy kérdésem lenne. Elnök úr, ahogyan is említette, most már egyértelmű, hogy nagyon súlyos energiaválság előtt állunk a Hormuzi szoroson, még biztonságban átjutott hajók a napokban érik el Európát, így, hogy sem Oroszországból, sem a Közel-Keletről nem érkezik olaj. Mit gondol, mi lesz Európával, azon belül Magyarországgal, az amerikai-magyar energetikai együttműködés mit jelent a gyakorlatban ebben a helyzetben, és az Egyesült Államok után hogyan látja, Brüsszel is feloldja el majd az orosz olajra és energiára vonatkozó szankciókat. And I would also like to ask Vice President Vance in English, if I may.
Please.
So, according to recent U.S. intelligence reports, Ukraine may have interfered in the American elections, helping the Democrats. It has also come to light that the Ukrainian intelligence treats Hungary as an operational zone as well. What kind of political motivation could be behind Ukraine targeting conservative, patriotic political forces both in the United States and in Hungary. Thank you very much.
Szerintem új helyzet van Európában, csak a magyar választások azok ma lerövidítik a horizontunkat, és ezért kevesebb figyelem jut erre. Hiszen bennünket, magyarokat érthetően a jövő vasárnapi választási eredmény érdekel. De közben történik valami, ami mindent megváltoztat. Ez pedig az, hogy az a stratégia, amelynek jegyében az európaiak eddig támogatták az ukránokat ebben a háborúban, az véget ért, az megbukott. Erre eleve is egy rendkívül furcsa gondolat volt, az, hogy az ukránokat megsegítve elő lehet idézni egy olyan helyzetet, hogy az elhúzódó háború az Oroszországot olyan nehéz gazdasági helyzetbe hozza, hogy az ukránok és az őket támogató európaiak nézőpontjából kedvező, meggyengült állapotban kell majd leülniük a béketárgyalások asztalához. Ez azért volt egy különleges gondolat, mert gazdasági háborút folytatni egy másik országgal szemben, amelynek van korlátlanul energiája, és korlátlanul nyersanyaga. Miközben az, aki gazdasági háborút akar nyerni, se energiával nem rendelkezik, se nyersanyaga, de különleges gondolat volt. És egy ideig lehetett azt gondolni, hogy majd az oroszokkal szembeni szankciók végül is elegendőek lesznek ennek a gazdasági háborúnak a megnyeréséhez. De most az történik, hogy hirtelen minden felértékelődött, ami az oroszoknak van. És hirtelen sokkal kedvezőbb helyzetbe kerültek, mint bármikor voltak korábban. És az európai háborús ukránpárti stratégia megbukott, ennek vége van. Csak most mi a magyar választásokra összpontosítunk, nem pedig Brüsszelre. Tehát én azt hiszem, hogy itt egy merőben új helyzettel fogunk szembenézni majd a magyar választásokat követően. A magyar helyzet nehéz, ezt nem akarom eltitkolni, hiszen az ukránok először még 22 év végén lezárták, blokkád alá vették a gázvezetéket, amin Oroszországból gázt hoztunk Magyarországra. Ezt még sikerült kivédenünk ezzel a török áramlattal. Majd most, nem sokkal a választások előtt, szerintem a választásokkal összefüggésben, és egy ukránpárti kormány esélyének megteremtése érdekében lezárták, blokkád alá vették az olajvezetékünket is. Azt az olajvezetéket, ami a magyar gazdaság köldögzsinóra. A fő ellátási útvonalunk. Ebből az következik, hogy Magyarországnak a tartalékait be kell vetni. Két dolgot kell csinálni, bár elzárták tőlünk az olajat, el kell látni a magyar gazdaságot és a magyar fogyasztókat és a magyar családokat üzemanyaggal és energiával, és rá kell kényszerítenünk az ukránokat arra, hogy nyissák meg a vezetéket. Nekünk erre van egy tervünk, ezt a tervet lépésről lépésre hajtjuk végre, és a végén meggyőződésem, hogy miután a nemzeti erők megnyerik Magyarországon a választást, az ukránoknak nem marad más választásuk, mint hogy feladják az olajblokkádot, és újra megindítsák a barátság olajvezetéket, és Magyarország visszatérhet a normális gazdasági működés keretei közé. Ezek az én, hát a remény az talán nem elég erős szó, ezek az én terveim. Így lesz ez.
So to answer your question, yes, we're certainly aware that there are elements within the Ukrainian intelligence services that try to put their thumb on the scale of American elections, on Hungarian elections. This is just what they do. This is part of the cost of doing business within some elements of their system. I try to remind myself that Ukraine, like the United States, is a very complicated place. There are good people and there are bad people. There are people that try to interfere in others' elections, and there are people who actually just say, you know what, we believe in sovereignty for everybody, and that's what we support. For example, there were people in the Ukrainian system who were campaigning with Democrats literally in the weeks before the presidential election where Donald Trump won very comfortably in November of 2024. So I'm aware of that stuff, but, you know, I don't think Victor lets that stuff get to him. I don't let that stuff get to me. We're here to try to solve the problems for the people that we represent. And whatever certain elements within the Ukrainian system think about me or think about anybody else, I really believe it's in the best interest of Ukraine, the best interest of Europe and Hungary, the best interest of the United States for this war to come to as rapid of a close as possible. You know, this is the seeds of this war, the seeds of this conflict were actually planted well before the fighting started. And they were planted when European leaders decided that they were going to go so deep into a particular energy economy that they were going to cut themselves off from oil and natural gas that came from the East. That was a huge mistake then, and it's obvious that it's a huge mistake now. And it's funny when I hear people accuse, you know, my president, for example, of being pro-Russia. My president has done more to help Europe out with energy and liquid natural gas than anybody in the world, which weakens Russia, because we would love our allies and our friends to pursue smart energy policies so their consumers can pay less money, but also when, God forbid, there's a conflict, they can rely on us rather than another country for the energy that they need. So it's so funny to me that very often the very people who accuse this or that leader of being pro-Russia are the very people who created an energy-weak economy in Europe to begin with, and that has done more than anything to make Ukraine weak and Russia strong. We just want the killing to stop. We want to get back to commerce. We recognize there's a lot of difficult issues, but the way to solve those issues is to talk to one another and to actually engage in the hard work of diplomacy.
And Mr. Vice President, 2 questions. It's your call, please.
Sure. So I want to call on a couple members of my pool because they traveled all night and are here with us. So let's start with Natalie at the Washington Post.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The clock is ticking to tonight when the deadline looms for avoiding bombing infrastructure in Iran to the Stone Ages, as the President has said. Do you have any new information to believe that a deal can be reached by then? And secondly, there's been some rhetoric from this administration, your administration, about this war, God supporting the United States in this war and the strikes against Iran being part of God's will. Do you agree with that? And what do you make of the idea that God is on the side of the U.S. in these strikes?
Well, so you asked if there's new information. And I don't, unless I have a text message from Steve. Well, I do have a text message from Steve Witkoff. Wouldn't you like to know the subject of this message? But no, I need to read it first before I talk about it. But here's what time is it in the United States right now? Okay, that makes sense. All right. Okay, so Natalie, on this question of the deal, I really think there are 2 pathways. The President's been very clear about this. There are 2 pathways that this thing is ultimately going to end. First of all, the United States has largely accomplished its military objectives. There are still some things that we'd like to do, for example, on Iranian ability to manufacture weapons that we'd like to do a little bit more work on militarily. But fundamentally, the military objectives of the United States have been completed. So that means, as the President has said, very shortly this war is going to conclude. And I think the nature of the conclusion is ultimately up to the Iranians. I think there really are 2 pathways, and I'm oversimplifying this a little bit, but I think pathway 1 is where the Iranians decide they're going to be a normal country. They're not going to fund terrorism anymore. They're going to be part of the world system of commerce and exchange, and that's going to mean much better things for them economically. It's going to mean better things for the peace and safety of the world. It's going to mean a lot of good things for a lot of people all over the planet. That's option A. Okay. Option B is if the Iranians don't come to the table and they stay committed to terrorism, to terrorizing their neighbors, not just Israel, but of course their Arab neighbors too, then the economic situation in Iran is going to continue to be very, very bad, and frankly, it will probably get worse. And so what the President has asked his entire team to do, particularly Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, is to figure out what are the contours of a potential deal. What are they willing to do? Because militarily, it frankly doesn't matter one way or the other to us. It's fundamentally a question of what does this look like afterwards, and that has been what the negotiations have been focused on. And the President's also been very clear that while the Iranians are trying to exact as much economic cost through the Straits of Hormuz, the United States has the ability to extract much greater economic costs on Iran than Iran has on an ability to extract costs on us or on our friends in the world. So I hope that they're smart. The president has set a deadline for about 12 hours from now in the United States. We're going to find out, but there's going to be a lot of negotiation between now and then, and I'm hopeful that it gets to a good resolution. The second question you asked about, is God on our side? Is God on whose side? I think my attitude towards military conflict has always been to pray that we're on God's side. And my own view is that we're doing this for the right reasons. We're doing this because we don't want a regime that has committed acts of terrorism to have it the world's most dangerous weapon, because that would mean a lot of innocent people dead. I certainly hope that God agrees with the decision that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon, but I'll keep praying about it. And if he gives me a good answer, you'll be the first to know, Natalie. Next question. Let's see. I think we have Reuters and AP. Let's do Reuters. Okay, good. I checked my earpiece to see if somebody on my staff would tell me who I should call on, but nobody answered. This is just Hungarians, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is Sumaya Rapamuk from Reuters. I have a couple of questions. I do think you have to read that text because we have reporting that the United States is striking some targets in Kharg Island. You did say that the military objectives of this war have been achieved. So could you help us understand why the president is still threatening to attack every bridge and every power plant in Iran? You also said that this will wrap up soon, but yesterday in his press conference, when he was asked about a timeline, he did not give a specific timeline, and he had said 4 to 6 weeks, and we're now in week 6. Do you have a specific timeline? Excuse me, these are spontaneous questions.
That's a lot of questions.
Okay, I'll stop. I mean, the Hungary question is this. If Prime Minister Orban loses, does the United States commit to working with the new leader? Will you have a golden age relationship with the new leader? Thank you so much.
Well, of course, we're going to work with whoever wins the Hungarian election because we love the people of Hungary and it's an important relationship. But Viktor Orban is going to win the next election in Hungary, so I feel very confident about that and about our continued positive relationship. Victor, is that right?
That's the plan.
Okay, all right. So you asked about Kharg Island. My understanding, having talked to Pete and General Kane about this, is that we were going to strike some military targets on Kharg Island. I believe we have done so. The president's deadline has been followed by us and everybody else, and he said very clearly, we're not going to strike energy and infrastructure targets until the Iranians either make a proposal that we can get behind or don't make a proposal, but he's given them until Tuesday at 8 o'clock. So I don't think the news in Kharg Island represents a change in strategy or represents any change from the President of the United States. He continues to say the deadline is 8 o'clock. And the deadline is for what? Fundamentally, what Iran is trying to do, because they've been defeated militarily, is they're trying to extract as much economic pain on the world as possible. And the President of the United States is a man who recognizes leverage, that if the Iranians want to exact a certain amount of pain, the United States has the ability to exact much, much greater pain. The President doesn't want to do that. I don't want to do that. That's why we're negotiating so aggressively. But fundamentally, the ball is in the Iranians' court. Now, I think the President has talked about this. One thing I will say is that the Iranians were not the fastest negotiators before the war started. And they are certainly not the fastest negotiators now. So we recognize there's some delay sometimes in transmitting messages from one person to another, but we feel confident that we can get a response, whether it's positive or negative. We're going to get a response from the Iranians by 8 o'clock tonight. I hope they make the right response, because what we really want is we want a world where oil and gas is flowing freely, where people can afford to heat their homes and cool their homes, where people can afford to transport themselves to work. That's not going to happen if the Iranians are engaged in acts of economic terrorism. So they've got to know we've got tools in our toolkit that we so far haven't decided to use. The President of the United States can decide to use them, and he will decide to use them if the Iranians don't change their course of conduct. I think that's it.
Mr. Vice President, miniszterelnök úr, köszönöm szépen. Sajtótájékoztatónk véget ért. Köszönjük szépen, hogy itt voltak a mai napon velünk, viszontlátásra.
Thank you all. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you.